computer. Karen, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm great. How you doing, Bino?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for joining me for the next 20 or 30 minutes or so. Can you tell our audience really quickly, we're going to talk about winning your next interview on this short call. Can you give us, our audience, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to share. So as you mentioned, my name is Karen Kelly. I am the founder of K2 Perform, which is a sales training, coaching, and consulting company. And what led me here is I spent 20 years in corporate sales in the B2B area. And a lot of people will say all the accolades and the strengths and everything that got you to where you are today. And I would say it's all the failures and all the times that I got to bat and I failed. And through that was the learnings. And so now what I do is I work with individuals and sales teams and I help them with the techniques, with the tips, with the different perspectives to come at it that I once struggled with, but now I'm equipped to help them. So I feel people think failure is a bad thing. And I would just say the quicker you can realize that it's part of
Yeah.
it's been my strength. And now I'm only in a position to help them because I made the mistakes earlier in my career.
Awesome. Okay. So I thought this was really interesting. When we connected, I thought this would be beneficial because you have such a strong sales background. And I think I speak to endless candidates that are going for interviews and just not winning the interview. And I'm convinced one of the reasons why maybe they're not winning the interviews, they're not selling themselves effectively during the interview.
Mm-hmm.
So here's where you come in. I want to pick your brain and maybe get an idea of what you can share with job seekers or maybe people struggling with their job search that, you know what, here's some things I suggest you do because selling is a big part of what we do during an interview. Would you agree?
Yeah. First of all, I would say the word sales sometimes elicits a negative, it's a trigger word,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
whatever you want to call that, I want to help them make a decision. I want to influence, I want to persuade, whatever that is, make that your own, because I feel that that in itself is a trigger word. And what I
Yeah.
would say, Pino, is it's not just looking at the interview itself. I would say it's a journey and look at before the interview, and then after. Because
Yeah.
most people now, before the interview, the first thing they're doing is they're Googling you. They're going on your LinkedIn profile. And so if you're
Yeah.
not active, if you don't have the basic things, a professional headshot, a point of view, a perspective, you're commenting, you're sharing, like that in itself is a bit of a red flag. They want to know, like, who am I hiring here? Because
Yeah.
think about it, this is where the selling comes in. They're thinking, what's in it for me? If I
Yeah.
get this person and they're vocal and they're visible and they're posting videos and they're going to conferences and they're sharing their point of view, that's what they can do for us. So
Yeah.
I would say the first part is, what are you doing? Do you have a personal brand? When they Google you, is there a point of view or a perspective or something that they're like, yeah, I get this is her or his angle. And
Yeah.
then when they meet you in the interview,
Yeah.
it's a validation. She is what she says she is. She does
Right.
these things. There's a congruence there.
Yeah.
And if there's not, that's a red flag, because then they're thinking, gosh, it's not really authentic here. What's going on? So
So
I
in
would
other words, what
go
you're
ahead.
saying is to be active on social media platforms, be visible.
If you are HR, whatever, if you're in the B2B space, you need to be on
Yeah.
LinkedIn and you
Yep.
need to be posting regularly. You need to be not just liking, because think about now sales, you have to stand out. There is so
Yeah.
much noise, even in the interviewing stage. I do some
Yeah.
recruiting and there's times I'll post for a sales position and I get 500 respondents. I can't
Yeah.
look through all of them.
Yeah.
So knowing, again, we use AI to screen. So how can you get ahead of that? How can you work with the algorithm? What
Yeah.
keywords are you putting in that's going to allow you to stand out? But
Right.
even before that, like, what are you doing on LinkedIn that you're adding commentary, you're part of associations,
Yeah.
you're doing the homework and going, okay, who's the hiring manager here? Am I
Yeah.
connected with them? Okay, no. Do I know anybody in my secondary degree connections that is? Can I reach out and say, hey, Pino, I see you're connected with Madeline, and what's it like
Yeah.
there? Can you introduce me? Can you give me a little bit of background about the culture?
Yeah.
Because what this allows me to do is confirm that this is the company I want to move forward with. But also, when you get in front of Madeline, there's a sense of, I already know you, I've spoken to you, you can do some name dropping,
Yeah.
and you're making Madeline's job easier, because when she goes back to her committee and whoever's going to make the decision,
Yeah.
out of 300, whatever the candidates are, you stuck out. You
Yeah.
have to be memorable
Yeah.
and you have to get creative, because it's a complete numbers game.
Yeah.
It's a long game. So what took you maybe 3 months is probably going to take you 9 or 12 months now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they're also looking, well, how is this person showing up in the interview and
Yeah.
even before it? Because this is what we can expect when we hire them. And
Yeah.
so if you're kind of lazy, phoning it in, doing just what everyone else is doing,
Yeah.
no one's going to take a risk on you. You're not
Yeah.
worth it. And
I
so you
agree.
have to really get creative
Yeah.
and think outside the box and go where people are not willing to go.
Yeah, I agree. And so, again, I talk about this often too, Karen, about like being active on LinkedIn, sharing, liking. If you can do it, create videos, because videos help me with my marketing and my branding. So create videos, and I share that with people, right? Being in front of cameras is hard for most people, but liking and sharing does really help separate you from the other candidates you are competing with. And you mentioned 500 resumes. That's quite a lot of resumes, right? You're not going to go through 500.
No, and what I would say is also backing it up a little bit is
Yeah.
knowing that the volume is there, like
Yeah.
understanding your purpose and your why. And I start all my training sessions with this because if you're just spraying and praying and sending out mass resumes to companies you're not completely aligned with or roles, and there's a range, I would do this, or this.
Yeah.
You're too on the surface and the language is generic and you're not going to, and this is sales, like you have to
Yeah.
be relevant, timely, and you have to speak the language. So the first thing is know what you want, what's important to you. Like, what's the legacy you want to leave behind? Is it the
Yeah.
company, the culture? Is it what the solution they provide and you're really aligned to it because, it's meaningful to you? Because everything downstream from that is going to show up. There's a sense of conviction and belonging because this matters. And when you
Yeah.
look at the Gen Zs, they
Yeah.
are all about being part of something, that there's community, that what you do matters. And so motivation is not always money for people. So
Yeah. Yeah.
understanding
Yeah.
what lights you up, that's the
Yeah.
company you should go for.
What excites you? Are there
Yes.
are your is there an alignment in terms of what you want and the organization? I totally agree with that. Karen, what can a candidate do to sell themselves during an interview? Are there some things you can share with us? I know I often share with candidates, sell your metrics, share your value. What would you share candidates? What can candidates do to win an interview?
Yeah. A few things I would say, Pino, is like look at the outcome you want and work backwards and put yourself in that. This is sale, right? Put yourself in the buyer's decision. In this case, the decision
Yeah.
maker is whoever you're dealing with, knowing that
Yeah.
they have to go back to someone else. And so, how can I make it easy for them? But what's important for them? So, asking insightful, impactful questions that stands out. And I would say, for me, if someone isn't asking questions, it's a red flag.
Okay.
But if you're asking questions that the information's found on our website, that's also a red flag because it shows me you haven't done your homework.
Okay.
So are you also, like you said, metrics are important. Are you sharing some of your past results, some of your past successes?
Yeah.
But I always say, bury it through the lens of a satisfied customer or a story. So you're not boasting or grandstanding. You're saying, the reason, I had won this award or this in my past company is because my team voted me for this, or is because we won the award for this, which allowed us to grow the business or, retain this metric of 30%.
Yeah.
And so build it into storytelling because, again, it's the part of the brain that makes a decision. It's emotional.
Yeah.
So how can we elicit an emotion or a feeling in
Yeah.
our audience that gets them going, yeah, okay, I'm leaning into this, but they're going to take that story because it's so memorable and it also is aligned to the role you're applying for, and they're
Right.
going to share it.
Yeah.
And when you just share metrics on its own, that's the part of the brain that justifies the decision. So how
Yeah.
can you elicit an emotion? And I would say you have to think about this before you get on the interview because it's not going to
Yeah.
come in the moment, right? So have a few stories planned, have some emotion, that before and after state,
Yeah.
have some team testimonials, some customer testimonials. I always say a brag file. And when you think about before you get on to the interview to work with your nerves or your confidence,
Yeah.
look at your brag file. And a brag file is anytime an employee, a boss has written something nice about you, there's some win, there's something, and you're reading this and there's, oh my God, you got to bring that to the interview and you have to channel that because that's what they're buying right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
That belief in you. If you don't have belief in yourself,
Yeah.
why would they believe in you?
Yeah. You have to believe in confidence in what you're saying, right? That's another thing.
And when someone is writing this on your behalf, saying, this is what she did with my team, by
Yeah.
partnering with her, this is what allowed us to do. It's
Yeah.
not me saying it. They are validating, oh my God, even if there's a little bit of doubt or imposter syndrome, your
Yeah.
customers or your team is telling you
Yeah.
that should help you own it a little bit and
Yeah.
share it with pride and conviction. And so I would say the interview is not a time to hold back on your accolades and your strengths.
Yeah.
It's a time to really double down, knowing that there's 300 people fighting for this position.
The only issue with that, Karen, is a lot of people get, I think oftentimes they sell themselves at an interview. They speak way too much. So just be mindful of, okay, great, bring these points, accomplishments and your successes, but just be mindful of, like, I've spoke to so many candidates over the years, they just go on and on and on and on. So just quickly, my great point, but just be mindful of your tone and how long you're giving that answer, right? So,
I would say clarity and brevity are huge.
yeah,
And also pausing. Pausing is so important. And people,
yeah,
especially if you're in the virtual environment, there's already a bit of a lag anyway. So a 3 to 5 second pause allows you to just, if you're getting in the hot seat and you feel, I don't really know how to answer that question, or it's a panel of three,
yeah,
by just taking a pause, it allows you to respond and not react. And you might have the right question, but by just pausing, you think, okay, but I have 3 different people here from 3 different areas. Is that the best question that's going to satisfy all of their needs? And so
yeah,
just taking a pause allows you to reset, remain in control, and then
yeah,
deliver with confidence and conviction.
yeah,
And read your audience. If you see them kind of checking out or looking at their phone, or you're going on too long, right? There's a
yeah,
nice to have and there's a need to have. And so we got
yeah.
to be mindful about how much are we sharing.
Yeah. Okay. Great tips. How do you end it? Is there a way to end an interview? Should you end the interview? Hey, Karen, it's great meeting with you. Can I follow up with you in a week? Or, like, in your opinion, how do you effectively end the interview?
Like in any sales, you never get off a call without booking another call. So you cannot leave it without these lines connect. You have to connect the dots. Those lines will run parallel forever. So you have to ask for the business. In this case, based on what I shared with you, based on my experience, based on your conversation,
Yeah.
let them know I'm really interested in this. I like to know the next steps in the process, and I really want to let you know that I would be a great asset to your organization. I look forward to moving along and meeting um, whoever those next steps are. But you have to
Yeah.
let them know you're interested, and basically have to ask for it.
Yeah.
And again, depending on the role, this is what they're looking for. And if
Yeah.
you just say, hey, thanks, it's been a great meeting for you,
Yeah.
it's going to end there.
Okay. Your thoughts on a thank you email, maybe the day after, or should you send a thank you email?
Absolutely. And I would say handwritten, definitely. I would go
Oh,
for the card, and I would do a handwritten card with
yeah.
it that day. So they're getting it 24 or 48 hours. The handwritten
Yeah.
cards I have on my desk are still
Yeah.
there. And again,
Yeah.
it's a way to stand out. It's memorable. Sometimes you get a thank you email and ChatGPT's written it, and
Yeah.
there's again emotion.
Yeah.
So let them know if you want to send something in the interim, you could
Yeah.
send a little video.
Yeah.
And I would say, thank you, Pino. It was really great working with you or meeting
Yeah.
with you. Thank you for sharing, and be specific.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, something that you mentioned about the role. And I look forward to, exploring more and advancing through the process with you.
Yeah.
But the benefit of video is they see you, but they can also forward it on to people in the organization. So if
Yeah.
there's a committee or there's other people that are part of the decision, they can send it and they can feel you and go, oh, okay, I like the way he or she said this,
Yeah.
versus someone else who hasn't.
Yeah.
Video will win all the time over a text or an email.
Agreed. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Okay, let's move on. Your thoughts on salary. Can you negotiate a salary? So if you're presented with an offer, I'm gonna throw a number out, $90,000.
Yeah.
Can you negotiate a salary once you receive the offer? Or what your thoughts on negotiating a salary?
I mean, absolutely, right? And this is what they're looking for. You got to know your worth. But I would say
Yeah,
even before that, on the interview, a lot of times they'll say, what are your salary expectations?
yeah,
And you have to have demonstrated value. Share your metrics, how you've helped other companies grow from A to B. And once you've demonstrated that and delivered it through storytelling, through specific examples, you should have no problem saying, so if it's 90, my expectations are between 100 and 125.
Okay, wait, pause that for a second. Because I say the opposite. If you say 90 to 125, that's a big window, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the client, the organization that's hiring, here's 90, but you want 125. So I always say it's best to give me an exact number. What is the number you are looking for? I'm looking for 100,000.
Well, if you're looking for 100, I would go above that and make that the lower end of a range. So if you definitely want 100, I would ask for 120, because they're
Okay,
probably, if you ask for 100, they're going to give you 90 or 85.
right.
So whatever in sales, from a proposal standpoint, I always give a range, because and make that range something you can do. It's not going to be, 10 to 80 grand. That's too much of a variance.
Yeah.
But if you want 100, I would say, between 115 to 130.
Yeah.
But when you say it, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. If you're saying it and you're
Yeah.
just going, oh, I just threw that number out of nowhere. I know I'm not worth that. I know I'm in my first year. Like, they're going to see that.
Yeah. They'll
But this
pick up
is
on that.
where they will. And this is where you
Yeah.
have to, what kind of preparation are you doing even before you get on the phone? Like, how are you embodying this confident person that can
Yeah.
warrant and ask for this? And so if
Yeah.
you're just showing up,
Yeah.
unprepared, haven't done your rituals, your practice, whatever those are, like, you're not going to be, I don't like to use the word convincing, but you're not going to influence them to do that. So you have to feel that when you're presenting it, based on what I've shared with you, based on the past success, the range is this to this.
Yeah.
And hold firm.
Yeah.
A lot of people, especially in sales, when they do this from a proposal standpoint, there's silence. People hate silence, and guess what they do? They fill it. Don't. You know your value. You know what you're worth.
Yeah. They're all
Own it.
good prints, but to your point, you have to understand and know what your value is. So is your ask in line with what the labor market is telling us, right? So I speak to so many candidates there. I'm looking for 100,000. You've got 2 years experience. There's not an alignment here. So I'd want to add to that by saying there has to be an alignment. You have to understand your worth, right? Before you can share that number with organizations, right? So
You definitely don't want to ask for something like, crazy and out of the range. But I would also say, if you don't get it because you are perhaps junior, you can
Yep.
still move forward. It doesn't always have to be in the term of financial bonuses.
Yes.
Can you get mentorship? Can you get an extra week of vacation? Can you
Yeah.
get stock options? Can
Yeah.
you get
Annual
some
bonus. What's the annual
professional
bonus?
development bonuses? Can you cover my LinkedIn Navigator? Can you
Yeah.
cover my travel like anything that it's just because
Yeah.
again, they're looking at how are you negotiating? How are you selling for yourself? Because everything you do
Yeah.
in this interview is what you're going to do for the company
Yeah.
if they choose you to move forward. So you
Yeah.
want to always be advocating for yourself because you are going
Yeah.
to be advocating for their clients.
Yes, totally agree. Totally agree. Karen, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. One final question.
Yeah.
Is there a general tip you can share with job seekers right now that maybe are struggling with their job search? Is there anything? I know you talked about being active. That's important. I think that's critical to any job search. What would you share to our audience watching this video right now? Number one tip.
I would say manage your expectations because sales is a long game. It's never on our timeline. And you
Yeah.
have to be you have to be consistently showing up every day.
Yeah.
And what I would say is the cold approach is longer. So look at your network, look at who's connected to who
Yeah.
can introduce you, and how can you compress that cycle? It's going to give you a leg up on someone else.
Yeah.
And the other way is somehow include video. Before or after, you have to include video. It allows them to see, but they're going to send that video to someone else.
Yeah.
Because think about their decision. Hiring is risky.
Yeah.
If I can reduce the risk by showing a video to someone and saying, "Hey, Pino, like I think she's good, but can you give me your opinion?" Even though it's a 2-minute video,
I agree.
it might just help me go, "Okay, I was right on that. That was a good candidate." So it's got reach and visibility, and it's a great way for you to stand out in a very noisy, commoditized world.
Great tip. And I will add my opinion on that. I think just be patient because the labor market right now is just flooded with so many people fighting for these limited jobs. So I would say being patient as well too. So
yeah.
So Karen, if anyone's watching this video right now and they want to reach out, they want to connect with you, they want to have a further conversation, how do we connect with you? How does anyone connect with you?
Well, I can't pitch LinkedIn and say not LinkedIn. So you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can also email me. My company's K2 Perform. So Karen at K2Perform.com. Happy to answer any questions if I can, and wish you luck.
And you have a YouTube channel.
I have a YouTube channel and I have a podcast. So the podcast is K2 Sales Podcast. So you can listen to it, but you can also watch it on the YouTube channel.
Awesome. That's amazing. That's amazing. Karen, thanks for your time. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Great to see you, Pino. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. Oh, there we go.